Gillard, what are your thoughts on the Coalition's comment that your party has lost control of the Australian waters? And what is your party doing to control the amount of boats coming into Australia?
Just say the first part again, sorry.
What are your thoughts on the Coalition's statement that your party has lost control of the Australian waters?
Thank you. That's an absurd statement, so that's my response to it. What we see around the world is a problem with people being on the move. The estimates are that there are 42 million displaced people in the world, and about 15 million of them are genuine refugees. What that means is that they are fleeing because they have a profound fear of persecution, a realistic fear of persecution, that if they stayed in their homeland that they would be killed, tortured, denied their liberty, a real fear of persecution. And around the world, developed countries like our own are seeing increased flows of people trying to claim asylum. And so we're seeing that in Australia too. We try to discourage that in a variety of ways. We pay a lot of attention to law enforcement and to detecting and disrupting people smuggling gangs, people who are trying to profit off this human misery. We've worked with Indonesia, so people smuggling is now a crime in Indonesia, and people who engage in that evil trade are caught and put in jail, properly tried and put in jail. We, of course, have naval and other assets that patrol our borders, our water, to our north particularly, and to the northwest. And when people arrive by boat in an unauthorised fashion, then we test their claims to see whether or not they're genuine refugees. And if they aren't genuine refugees, then we take steps to try and get them to go back to their homelands. It's complicated. It's not easy. It's not easy for any country on earth. Many countries struggle with the same issue across Europe, the UK, the US. We've sought to be guided in all of this by a very expert report we got from a group of very eminent Australians. Unfortunately, with some of the negativity in politics now, we've been stopped from implementing all of that report, but we still want to implement all of it. This isn't an area of policy that you can just use a simple slogan and pretend that it's all going to be fixed and changed. It really requires very deep thought and rigorous work, and that's what we'll continue to do. I'll come back over to this block for a few questions. So given Yvette's down the front, now I'm worried we're discriminating against people in the middle, so we might try and get the microphone through to the girl in the middle there, even though it makes Yvette's job harder. Otherwise it's just people on the sides that'll get a go.
Prime Minister, what is your government doing to help small businesses compete against overseas imports that are cheaper?
Very good question. We, at the moment, are seeing imports in our country cheaper than they used to be, and that's because of the strength of the Australian dollar. Where we are with our Australian dollar at the moment is that it routinely is worth more than an American dollar. Now, for you, because, you've lived with that for some time, that might seem like quite a routine thing, but let me tell you, for those of us who have been around a bit longer and travelled, for us to have a dollar worth more than the American dollar is an amazing thing. For a lot of time that people in Australia have gone overseas, you would be lucky to get 60 or 65 US cents for an Australian dollar. So our dollar has gone up in value around about 50%. It's because we came out of the global financial crisis strong. It's because our economy is stronger than other economies. We're offering low interest rates, but there's still interest rates that are higher than are being offered in nations overseas. So people with money to move are bringing that money to Australia. That demand for Australian dollars puts the value of the Australian dollar up. For imports, it means those imports are cheaper. We're giving less Australian dollars to get the same import than we used to. So we do need to help businesses that are doing it a bit tough. For small businesses, we've got some new tax arrangements, which means they can buy things for the business and write some of the cost of it off and pay less tax. That's an important thing. for businesses in our manufacturing sector in particular, we've got a $1 billion plan to bring innovation and change to those businesses so they're better able to compete with this very strong Australian dollar. You probably heard in the news that the Reserve Bank put interest rates down this week. One of the big factors on their mind was the strength of the Australian dollar. So it's a very good question. Thank you for it. We'll go towards the back. So just, what about the hand right at the back? You're in the very, very back row, aren't you?
Prime Minister, what do you think the impact will be of reducing tertiary education? Sorry, what do you think the impact will be for reducing tertiary education for those who want to seek further study?
Look, we have made a decision about funding in university, but I'm very, very confident that you, when you leave school, will have, if you want to go to university, you'll have a choice of great universities to go to which are well funded and which are still growing student places. And you're probably thinking to yourself, how can she be so sure of that if they've recently made the funding decision that you've heard about? I can be so sure of it because in government we've increased funding to universities by more than 50%. That's a lot. We've done that because universities did need more funds. We've done it too because we wanted to grow the number of places in our universities because the jobs of the future are going to be higher skilled jobs. So we need more people with university qualifications. So university funding's been going up. In order to get a better deal for schools, more money into schools, we have decided that for 2 years, 1 year, we'd ask universities to pay what's called an efficiency dividend, so a 2% reduction in funds. The next year, a 1.25% reduction. That's against a 50% increase. Funds are still going to grow. They're just not going to grow as sharply as they otherwise would. So you can be very confident that there will be lots of universities that want to see you coming and studying there and that they'll be good places to go and study too. So we'll take some questions along this side. So just, yes, the girl almost alongside you, Yvette. Yep.
Prime Minister, what is the government's thoughts and plans on the nuclear crisis over in Korea?
Oh, yes, this is an issue you probably followed on TV screens, and maybe some of it seemed a bit scary as it was happening too. On the Korean Peninsula, we've got the Republic of Korea, South Korea, a vibrant democracy. In the north, we've got North Korea, which is a dictatorship with an appalling human rights record, absolutely appalling human rights record. And if I can give you just one insight into that, our ambassador to South Korea goes into the north periodically, and he told me a story about how under the former leader in North Korea, he formed the view that triplets were somehow special. So if a woman had triplets, they were taken away and raised in a state-run house. He went to one of these state-run houses where there were 4 sets of triplets, children who were, 9 and 10 years of age, who were the size that we would expect 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds to be because they'd been underfed for so long. And he had some chocolate with him, and so they'd never seen chocolate. So he was trying to encourage these kids to take a piece of chocolate from him, and finally one of the braver ones came over and took a piece of chocolate, and once that happened, all the other kids realised it was a good thing to have. But when you hear stories like that, it breaks your heart about what's happening to the people in North Korea. At the same time that they've got that appalling human rights record and so many North Koreans don't have enough food, they are directing a lot of resources into trying to build weapons, missiles, develop nuclear weapons. We and the nations of the world are putting pressure on them to stop that conduct through sanctions and diplomatic pressure, and will very much continue to do that because you don't want a rogue nation like that to end up with sophisticated weapons, and also you want that nation to be doing something better by its own people than we're seeing now.